you guys have more or less touched on fairness here and there, but it's mostly assumed that most of the carbon pricing mechanisms are aggressive, that affect low and middle income families more than high income families. But that's not necessarily the case. I think some of the work that you've done, is that right? Right. I'm sorry. And Natalie, you've done some work around fairness and how the BC carbon tax impacted residents out there, and also what was proposed in Australia, the emission trading system on some of the Aboriginal population there.
I mean, so sorry, it's okay. There's a lot of, maybe we should just do it with the mics. There's a lot of expertise on the panel, and mine is quite limited in the sense that, first, I'm not an economist, I'm a lawyer, so I'll know my disclaimers here. And I'm also not someone who's done empirical work on regression analysis. But what I have done is really just pose some questions. And there's been a lot of discussion about the fact that when you price carbon, that increases prices, right? It increases consumer prices, it changes labor markets, it does all sorts of things. And so at some point in the political discussions about all these carbon pricing instruments, people got very concerned. They thought, well, if we're going to raise carbon prices, isn't that going to impact on low-income households more than others? And there's been a lot of research done, including by Nick and by others, on this question that has essentially shown us that the question is much more complicated than it appears at first glance, and I'll let Nick speak to his own studies. But what I think is really important to take home is that we have to consider the impact on low-income families and on different segments of the populations by looking not just at which instrument is going to affect families or populations differently, but also what about no carbon pricing instrument? Because all policies have regressive impacts. They impact families differently, individuals differently. But if we use that as a reason not to price carbon, we risk much greater impact on those families and those vulnerable populations. So some of the work I've done on let's say, Aboriginal groups or on gender and women, those have shown, for instance, that climate impacts some of those vulnerable populations more than it does your average person. And so not pricing carbon is far worse, in my view, my personal view, than pricing it. And then when you look at pricing in terms of the regressive impacts, or in some cases progressive impacts, it depends so much on the design and so much on what you do with revenue. And so it has so much to do with how you're going to allocate your revenue, and the research that I've done and what I put forward is in discussions. Once a jurisdiction like Ontario has decided to price carbon, and then it looks at these instruments, it can be strategic in terms of thinking about how to reallocate those revenues back in a way that not only achieves the emissions certainty and everything else that we're going after, but also make sure that you're not disadvantaging already disadvantaged populations. And it's imminently doable. It's just about being thoughtful. So things like if you're going to create incentives for retrofitting homes, we'll take into account that not everyone is a homeowner. So certain segments of populations are renters. And so you just have to be creative in terms of how you design your revenue use policies and how you actually go ahead. So I'll let others speak to it.
I'd love to pick up on that one because your final point was one that I wanted to get to.
First of all, I would say that I believe this the fairness, the regressive critique is overblown. You're usually hearing it from privileged, wealthy, middle-aged males driving big cars. Oh no, it won't be fair, they say, because it's a convenient way to stop the policy choice from being made in the first place. But if you dig deeper, I believe what we're finding is, in fact, the person who hardly has any disposable income, the person who is not, who doesn't even have those choices, is least likely to be hurt by a price on carbon that's modestly raising the price of something that they're probably not buying much of in the first place. So be careful of who the messenger is when you're hearing that. I'm very sensitive to a tool, its regressiveness, and not wanting it to be regressive, but dig deeper when you hear that. The important point, I think, is you can put a price on it. The price can lead to increasing costs in certain areas, but if you're able to compensate, as Natalie was just saying, through better, more targeted tools, I'll pick an example here in Ottawa. If we are able to get more money to Ottawa community housing so that Ottawa community housing can make all of its buildings not just more energy efficient, but more comfortable and healthier to live in, then we will have achieved far more than not having put that little price on carbon in the first place. So we can be intelligent by having complementary policy tools in play.
Yeah, so I was just thinking, this is a great little matrix. So if we were sitting in Environment Canada, we would have a matrix just like this. We'd be walking through our policy choices, and we'd be having these conversations, and we'd be identifying issues like fairness. Oh, there's impacts on low-income households. Can we fix it? You know what? I've done a lot of carbon tax work for Environment Canada over the years. It's just done very quietly. You know, lead tax, there's, anyway. So this is kind of an interesting discussion, but another dimension of fairness. So there's subcategories under here. When one thinks of fairness, one thinks of low-income households and the regressive impacts of the policy. But the other element of fairness is sort of emissions fairness. So if you take a look, and this is a little controversial, but this is why I like the the WCI, you know, the Quebec and the British Columbia, you know, broad-based economy-wide coverage of the policy. Because the current federal debate we're having right now, because we're in this sector-by-sector corner, locked into a corner, we're all focused on oil and gas. So in Alberta right now, they have the specified gas emitter regulation that is imposing real costs on the sector. It is reducing some emissions. There's a trading regime, and there's a technology fund where they're recycling industrial money back into energy efficiency and innovation. You know, so there's a cool thing going on. But anybody driving a car in Alberta right now doesn't have a charge on their emissions, like someone driving a car in Quebec would. And similarly, Saskatchewan has no policy for their industrial emissions. So we have, you know, when you think about a policy in fairness, you also have to say, well, yeah, dirty oil is a problem, no doubt. Chemicals, cement, problem. What about my car? And so what's good about the Ontario system and how they're lining it up is it's likely, or one of the things you should push for, is broad-based coverage, because then that leads to flexible choices. You're looking for cheap reductions out of more corners of the emissions from cars, from buildings, from industry, and you get a more efficient policy. So that other dimension of fairness is really an important one to